Hello, world. We have an exciting one today. We are going to give some time for people to come in, but for our non-live viewers, this is a recording of a live stream that we are doing here at Bigtensor across Zipcode, of which I'm the CEO of, Instant, a new subnet, of which the number has not been released, and Dan is the CEO of, and Peyton Spencer, the CEO of Ditto. And we're here today because we have a lot going on in this Bigtensor ecosphere. In a moment, I'm going to take a second, and if Peyton and Dan, as I talk, you guys can do this in your own regards to send out the stream to people to allow people to come in. But to give you guys that are watching the recording the preface, there is so much going on. There are changes happening to Bigtensor. There are changes happening to Bigtensor, or what we can call Big sometimes. And one of those changes is here, and it's with Instant and Dan. Now, again, we're not releasing any numbers. That's me telling the guys here, and also me telling you to get your hopes settled. This will be happening on Monday, which is also what we have scheduled as the transfer date of the slot. So this will all be happening on chain. It'll be change identity and initiate transfer. So that being said, Dan is already working on this incentive mechanism. With that, to get the incentive, to get the transfer initiated and Bigtensor to custody the key in our own process, which we'll talk about on a later date, we are doing this through a Zipcode vault, right? This is an agreement. We are able to represent agreements through Zipcode Finance and curate those as vaults, or really as any product that generates revenue for that matter. So in this case, we're going to start there. Then we're going to go into Instant and the incentive mechanism and what that means in the business opportunity. I think we had a pretty cool conversation. I don't want to name drop, but we had a cool conversation with a big investor in the space here, and he was interested in one thing, Dan, that you talked about. So I want to go deep on that subject. And
let's do it.
Yeah, and then that naturally flows right into Ditto, which is the first waiting customer for Instant, which solves Peyton's number one pain point of anyone's pain point in Bigtensor of wanting more innovation. More innovation means more tokens. More tokens means more speed. And what that means is more submissions and validation cycles for harnesses and even other model competitions, which we'll talk about as we covered the implications of 440. And we talk about, I made a post in Nerds, and I thought it was kind of spot on. And I said, this was like at 3 a.m. last night. And I said, Bigtensor is changing, and the meta of that change is that subnets are going deep. This was in response to somebody that was saying, Sebi, how the hell are you even staying organized or operationalized through the day with all this fragmentation? Oh, your subnets are so different. One, they're not my subnets. Let's get that straight. Two, this is on purpose, right? If you have verticals, you play into the meta of Bigtensor, right? Intelligence is very different than inference, right? It's a completely different, problem to solve. And capital is a completely different problem to solve. Intelligence, completely different problem to solve. And we have our thesis on each, and we also have our thesis on how they come together in this quite glorious manner. And if you're in the Nerds group, you can read that if you go look at 3 a.m. from today. And if you're not, you can just listen to this because we're basically going to talk about it again. I also need to get better at making the transcripts for this so that our written people can view. But first things first, before I go into Zipcode stuff, I have some really cool people here I don't want to just have sitting around. Dan, Payne.
Hello.
Dan, but how are you?
I'm doing great. A little bit busy, as you can imagine, with the build out here. But I love getting to the thick of the weeds of it, and so it's like a builder is what I am at my core, and that's I'm in my happy place.
Yeah, you're walking on the wild side. So this is like what is it? I sent you a message. I was like, "Welcome to class of 2026." Like it's like when you come to the owner side, it's completely different. And before we go into Peyton, to that point of the structure here. Bigtensor nor Ditto own Instant. Right, we are strategic partners. in the form of distribution and distribution development administrative elements. It's really just how do you put someone like Dan in an environment to have a team of 1 to 3 people, maybe 5 people, and make $1 billion effing dollars. That is the objective here. Now, uh, yeah. So our other friend Peyton is here. Real quick before I go into the zip code vault thing, we're given 5 minutes. Let's push it a bit more. Peyton, how are you, man?
Hey man, hey Sebi, great to be here. Great to see you, Dan, compadre in subnet development, and I'm also heads down as well. I'm working on benchmark V8 and working on challenging my miners even more because they deserve a good challenge.
What is it? Day 16 V8.
Yeah, well, I guess V7 only lasted like a week, I want to say, and it's kind of been saturated. Happy to say that V8, I've pushed scores down to 0.4 for the top miner, but I'm probably going to get that even lower. I came up with some maybe novel stuff, but some very interesting ways to generate this data. So we'll cover that later.
Cool. Yeah, and just for the viewers, one of the things that's most interesting to me, and I think is the most slept on element of Ditto, is the fact that you can plug Ditto into long mem eval, but you can also plug the agent or the agents like Hermes, like OpenClaw, like the whole entire plethora of other agents, Claude even, right, in these harnesses, and you can plug them into the Ditto bench competition, right? You guys can even do this yourself at home with uh, code or Ditto code or Claude code or Codex, whatever, and basically take an open code base, run it against the V8 Ditto bench, and then just get the results. To that point, I want to go on that. I know we haven't prepared any content formally. We have talked about it, and you have prepared some numbers in chats. But I want to pull that thread, Peyton. I think it's really important for people to understand. Holy cow! There's all this adoption for Hermes and OpenClaw and just harnesses in general. Cursor has its own thing, and also there's this quite wide open market now in DTAO and Bigtensor for the everything harness, the orchestrator harness, and beyond. But not to spoil it now, we'll get to that in a bit. Let's start with Zipcode vaults. Zipcode, it has gone through a lot of changes. That is an objective truth, right? We are a startup. I would say a pretty startup. It's a very nice brand. It's a nice name. It has all. It's very well put together. We have this, cadence of content and strong operators. But at the end of the day, it's quite hard to and this is me speaking to our chart. It's quite hard to have as much confidence as I or Dan or Peyton do in these things, which I understand. But I will also say that this is not these efforts are not in vain. Having revenue is the most important thing right now in Bigtensor. Right, that's the thing, and that's what we built for. We have Saint Kyle. I'm trying to find the words for it. Saint Kyle came into the Bigtensor 46 sphere in basically June 1st, and since then he's built out this entire protocol of which he's had a lot of practice on. But it's put us in a spot to now offer these. One, coordinate was really this first vault because most of it is manual, and this tells the story that in the direction that we are taking and the direction we are taking, which is go slow and tell the story, make it make sense. We went from real estate models to now we're going to finance people's houses. That itself is a huge shift. We changed the name, right, from Resi to Zipcode, right, and now we're actually backtracking publicly, openly, as you have to in Bigtensor. I mean, I'm not hiding from anybody here. I come on stream twice a week. But we are backtracking to tell a really wonderful story that vaults are very emergent. You can have a vault and it can be one-off or it can be templatized and used by other people. And in this case, that vault allows someone like Dan to get a subnet, to operate on a subnet, push code to the subnet. at Bigtensor custody. We have a whole thing where we keep everything offsite and safe. So to that point, that is a financial product, really a credit product. How it works is you have an owner of a subnet. They prove that ownership. They coordinate with a custodian, me, and then they have people apply. Dan. Dan applies for the subnet. Think about the subnet 25 competition idea. Apply with an idea, get a subnet. But as a product, right? Think about, the precursor to BitStarter, right? I want to apply to BitStarter. Okay, well, there's a subnet on the other side, and here's the custodian, and here's the transfer that was initiated, and it says, Zipcode Finance Vault 003, and people know that's the dedicated thing. And then somebody, but you tell the story of a credit agreement on chain, because bringing it back to credit, Dan is going to be paying a portion of emissions to the owners of the subnet, right? Because until he can pay that off, right? Credit, you're borrowing this thing until you pay off that loan, much like if you think about a subnet as a house, right? Or a home. That's probably much nicer. A subnet is a home, right? So now let's go to the next step of how we are taking it one step back on ZipUSD and saying, hey, we were going to build this product with a yield source from financing houses, or the financing people who finance houses. Those pipelines are active. The issue, guys, is that the sales pipeline is a long pipeline, and we're not going to make you wait when we can act in the meantime. So acting in the meantime looks like this. ZipUSD needs a yield source. ZipUSD wants to provide a credit product on chain. And how we will do that is by providing for the three people here, lines of credit for subnet owners. This is not what Endure is doing. Endure is doing specific for like everyone, right? Everyone can come permissionless. This one is you have to verify using the Zip server that you're the subnet owner. You have to verify, all of your information. You have to verify the documents were signed, that you have a custodian. There is an extra element that the Zip server comes in to allow these basically business lines of credit for subnets, vetted subnets, docs subnets. And when you buy ZipUSD, you get a yield of say 10 to 25%, but you also are funding Bigtensor. And you can say, hey, I want my yield to be paid in Ditto Alpha. I don't want you to sell it for dollars or Tau. And now you have this economic flywheel where you can incentivize these lines of credit. They generate revenue because they, when you do these OTCs, they're like 10 to sometimes 50% rebate or discount. So there is a value to being able to exit Alpha as a subnet owner specifically to finance the business. And there's also the fact that every subnet owner, well, and all of us here have the starting balance for a collateralized loan, but with better terms than you would normally get on a permissionless vault. So that's how ZipUSD is taking one step back. Here's the thing. Our network, that's just our Zipcode.finance operations on the larger Zipcode network. Our goal is to show the success of ZipUSD as a multi-million-dollar AUM, multi-$100,000 per year, probably approaching $1 million ARR product if we're going to excite people. But show that and show other curators and other protocols that they can come and build their products on Zipcode. And so it's actually quite an easy transition into Instant, because this first vault, I'm not just making an example here, right? The first vault is Dan getting operational access to a subnet by way of me and at Bigtensor custodying. And for the record, I do not custody any keys on site, not here, not at any personal location. These are at two separate banks. So thank you. To that point, and we were gonna publish this too to like prove it. There's nothing here for you. But I'm the custodian, and that allows Dan to know that he can have subnet, and I'm not gonna not help him push his business. And then the owner of the subnet has agreements with me as well. They know I'm not just gonna give the keys to the castle to Dan. And Dan's like, cool, thanks. I'm not going to pay this loan now. This is a more creative way, and naturally, I think of our friends at BitStarter. Naturally, I think of our friends at Endor, and BitStarter can do these subnet lease agreements, right? Even beyond finance, they're buying all these slots left and right. They can do these, and then for vaults, all the other subnet owners, hey, Endor, right? Come curate on us, and you can now save all this money on audits, save all this time, and really be a creative engine. Now you can have your miners underwrite the loans on our network, and you give them a cut of your zip code emissions. So it's like mining zip code as a subnet is almost what Endor could be. And it would actually be a really great outcome of stacking yield. I'm rambling. We're at 15 minutes. My promise was to keep it short. And I think I did a really good job of articulating this. And as a transcript comes to the Twitter timeline on the @SebiRubino profile, it'll only be more clear for the humans and the agents. But Dan, you're getting the subnet, man, and you're working really hard. I hear from you. I don't hear from you. I hear from you, and you're like, "What the hell is going on?" I'm hallucinating. I'm just kidding. But you and Peyton are kind of in the same subnet boat. I feel like I don't even belong on my own call here, for that matter. But please, Dan, tell me what's been going on. Tell me. We'll start there. We're this casual. Yes.
Well, let me flow into it. Before this whole subnet thing, I did join Zipcode, and then I am one of the engineers actually running Zipcode as well. And just to add some layers on top, I told Sebi, I was like, hey, we should like trademark Bank of Bigtensor, like Bob, right? I think that would be a great thing. And then as we're building out this pipeline for home loans and HELOCs, it's just one of the ways you could think of Bigtensor is something like a monopoly board, and subnets are property slots. And then it just kind of clicked. It just like, well, look, subnets cost as much as a house anyway. So, and it's all on chain here. It's all within the ecosystem. And on top of that, the players of the game already, right? So you're not going out to a stranger and trying to vet them. It's it just so happened. It's just like before I joined Zipcode, I was kind of looking to go forward and do a subnet to begin with, and some of the VCs like were quite predatory, and I said like, look, let's just fund it as a loan. And by the way, it's over collateralized, right? And there's a few avenues here. The bank builds trust, right? We're going to see this process go through. And so the Bank of Bigtensor is building trust, and I'm more than happy to be the first one to step into it. It's actually exciting. Two, it's more of like, it's not going to be predatory VC stuff, right? And it's hard for a subnet founder or want to be potential subnet founder to go out and then see all the VCs and then try to find his way through when it's like, look, I know what I'm going to build is going to work. And let's just make it as a traditional loan. And if you try to go traditional financing, it gets really tricky, right? Because what is a TAO? And then you got to go into the bank and traditional bank and try to explain all this crypto stuff and what you're doing and et cetera. It's have this be here where we know the system works. We know the protocol works. And hey, Sebi, you're a player of this game, and you know the other players of the game, and you can see stars up and coming, right, from much further away while you're in the game than if you're like a traditional bank, right? You don't even know what you're looking at. So that was the kind of the motivation, and I think we're gonna get there, and through Instant we're gonna get there. And then okay, to Sebi's question, what am I doing? I am building. I am heads down building like close to 12 to 14 hours a day. I need another AI agent on my team, using both Codex and using Claude to their fullest extent, and just trying to pump this out as fast as possible.
Sounds like a ditto.
Exactly. And so Yeah, that's where I am. I'm going off of coffee, sleep, and code, and that's my life right now, and that's
Cope,
where I see it.
Cope or Coke?
Code. Yo, great
Code.
job,
Code.
man.
Okay, code.
Keep it
Okay.
up. I can I ask a question? I want to know about how you're gonna like measure speed and like grade the miners on speed and stuff.
Yeah. So let's start with step one. Get a subnet out that does inference, and that's it, right? That's step one. As we're doing inference, right? We got some party balloons going, and then go into the instant name. How do we actually get the speed to a place we want it to be? That's going to start with a benchmark. And then, so let's benchmark GPT OSS on 4090s, right? Whatever the tokens per second is. That's going to be our floor. If you want to be a miner and enter, you have to meet that bar, or else you just get no emissions, right? Then we're going to do 5090s. Then we can do H100s. Then we can do H200, whatever it is. Ratchet up the tokens per second with a benchmark. And then there is, I alluded this on the previous call I had with Sebi about this. I at Microsoft, I worked on a product called Managed VNet IR, which is Managed Virtual Network Runtime Integration, or Integrated Runtime. It's still out today. I joined a project technically as a researcher, and it was Project Babylon. Eventually, it launched and turned into Purview. And what Purview is it gives you, as a chief data officer, it gives you a full purview of your data, right? So if I'm in corporations, data is scattered, data is everywhere, and it's hard to put things together. So let's say you're in Europe and you have somebody coming and say, I want you to remove all my data from all your servers. Well, accounting has some information on CSV over here. Our platform team has a few databases you're scattered in. And there's like other bits and pieces everywhere, from like SQL to NoSQL to literally CSV files to Excel files to everything, right? So what Purview does is it ingests all your company data and shows the chief data officer a dashboard of where everything is, the schema of all the data, and where you can search for things. So it's a product geared towards chief data officers at the end of the day. And as you can imagine, it's expensive to run. And there's one of our customers are Walmart. Our customers are Coca-Cola. BP was a customer, right? So when I say pipeline data ingestion, I'm talking about like just the amounts of data I have like never seen before, right? The Royal Bank of Canada came to me, well, not to me, to Purview. And they're like, we really want to work with you. And we have a 7-figure deal on the table. Right, because our data laws are getting more and more strict. And by the way, so it's like every country's data laws are getting more and more strict, right? This is a product that's only going to grow in demand. And they said, we want to work with you, but we cannot offload our data off our servers. That's that's illegal. Like, it's going to have to stay here. And that's when I was tasked and then led a small team on something called Managed VNet IR. What we do is we tunnel into their servers and we run our product there on their servers through a virtual network. We show them their dashboard and everything they want to see through Purview. But at any point, we can also pull it back, right? So one of the levers that we can pull here is like, how do we go from H100s to custom compute? And that's the goal, right? Like, I would really love a miner to build their own FPGA, their own silicon, their own whatever it is that they need to get the tokens up higher. Well, we can virtually tunnel in. At that point, we don't need a T, because the code we're running is my code. I wrote this code, right? And it can come in as a binary package or whatever it is, a compiled package. And I'm running my code on your hardware, and then I can pull it back at any point I want. And now I know exactly the tokens per second I got off of whatever machine it's running on. Right? That's another way to go about it, where we don't need a T per se. Initially, it's going to start with a T, right? So like the 4090s, the H100s, etc. Like those can run in a T, and that can be the benchmark. At some point, there's going to be this product that we build that I'm literally going to pull from, I built from the corporate world, and we're going to launch it. And now I don't care what hardware there is. Look, it's my code. And if you can give me higher tokens per second, you get better emissions.
So tell me about the economics here, because you did give me some industry examples. If you pull up Open Router, I might as well just do this just to show people how they can do it as well. If you want to
Yeah,
understand
let's look at the fast inference
right,
marketplace.
it's like you just go to the models. Sorry, you go to rankings,
Mhm.
then you go by top models. I really only care for open models, um, and then you can just go this month. And what you can see is that this month, uh, GPT-OSS is ranked 13th on in most in-demand models, next to Kimi K3, and it has 2 trillion tokens in this 30-day time span, or actually, yeah, it took 30 days, 30th of July. And I'm looking at this number here, guys. But
Yeah,
to this point, and let me make sure that, okay, it is showing on the
yeah,
stream. We're using this at Ditto for the validation mechanism. So if we can run this 120B open model from GPT or OpenAI rather, we win. But
we're using the smaller flavor of that, by the way.
oh, now we are.
No, we always were 20B. The 120B is quite good. We like the 120B. I would recommend it. In our tests, we want to. We just hate our miners, so we gave them the 20B. The one that says 20B, yeah, that one. Yeah. So
That was facetious, by the way. We love our miners.
yeah, we really love our miners. Our miners know this. My miners are like, this guy's fair. I'm like, I'm trying, brother.
Okay, so this is just a smaller version of the same type of
Right.
mixture of
Mhm.
experts.
This is what I'm developing with, by the way. So on personal
Perfect.
dev machine, this is what I'm running, and then launching, I'm planning on doing 120B.
That's perfect. It's the ideal, like, because like 20B is great, but it still isn't that smart. Yeah, so throughput 238. Now go to the 120, and you'll notice that the 120 has faster throughput than the 20, and I think that's because more people, worked on that, right, and tried to
Yep.
optimize that. So let's look at the
It's
120 because the 120 is a more useful model. Look at that, more TPS on a bigger model, higher TPS. Brought to you by Cerebras. Cerebras and Grok and Samba Nova, those are the folks to beat.
exactly.
So these are specialized compute clouds. Just I mean these 5 here alone. Let me go back. Yeah, I don't know these other names, but I do know these to be not just general purpose clouds, but
Specialized chips.
specialized chips. Now to Dan's point, there is a company called Talus, and we talked about this, but I would like to force Dan to introduce this idea because he articulates it extremely well. Normally, I'm the one to speak on the big ideas, but this one is like almost beyond me. The last thing I'll say on this note is that when we talked to a recent, we had a recent conversation this week, and we told this to an investor, and they were like, "This doesn't make any sense." So make it make sense even for me, Dan, and talk about how Talus is putting a data center on a single chip. Yeah.
Oh, so this is okay. So I'll preface this by saying this is the vision. This is not the current reality, right? But this is the trajectory, the path
Yeah.
that it's trying to go on. So this is running, as you can see, a Llama 3.1 8B on 6 nanometer chips, right? TSMC 6 nanometer chips. So these are, I think, what is it, 7 and below are extreme ultraviolet lithography. So this is like right on the border where it's just like ultraviolet light lithography, which is a huge different world, by the way. The moment you go into extreme UV, you're dealing with only like 1 or 2 companies in the world that can even build that chip, right? And the moment you're a little bit higher, now you actually have a whole marketplace of companies that can build a chip for you. So the idea is this: if you have an AI model, and the way you can think about it is neurons, right? And that's kind of what it is. It's weights and biases, and there's neurons, and they're all connected to each other, like a brain, like a physical brain. And then at the end, you got an output, right? It's called the output tensor. And one of the ways you can actually design the chip is where you bake in the weights and biases with resistors. So you give an input voltage. It goes through a series of resistors, which is like the compute brain. And this is kind of like how humans' brain work. And then at the very end, you have an output tensor, and you just see the voltages you have at the end. And then that is now your inference output, right? Your output tensor.
So the chip is the model. The model is the chip. You shoot a pulse of energy into said chip, said model. And what that does is it makes the output of that pulse of energy, or energy which is instant, give you what is called inference.
Exactly. So it's computing at the speed of electricity or the speed of physics. It's like you can technically represent this with even plumbing and water if you want to, right? At the end of the day, like the representation doesn't matter too much. You can abstract away the binary of it, right? You don't need ones and zeros actually computing this. You can just send a pulse of electricity. It goes through the resistors, which are the weights and biases. You have an output voltage. That's your output tensor. Now, you're only limited now by measuring the output tensor and sending in the initial pulse. And the electricity flows extremely quickly.
Simply put, for the smooth brains like myself, I can really understand the idea of baking in weights to a chip, right? You're literally just setting limits on where things stop and start and, go and don't. To me, that is as simple as just like put it in a printer and it just scans all of that stuff. I know it's not as simple, but of course and to your point, I do want to talk about, right. You answered Peyton's question. We understand where we start. It's actually simple. Then we really start specialized probably after a week or so of getting our, feet set. And then there's this long-term vision. Tell me more about this nanometer conversation and who has the ability to create what you would need to put, say, a 120B model or a 20B model on a chip.
So that's where the incentive mechanism comes in, right? We're going to ratchet up the limit you need, right? So the tokens per second required. And let's ratchet it up for specifically the focus here is speed. And we're going to get to a point to where standard off-the-shelf hardware is going to be basically not going to be able to compete with what our requirements will be, right? So once we reach that point, the goal is then to incentivize miners to start going a little bit more custom, like create an FPGA at first, right? Find some other optimization, right? Maybe, and as we measure tokens per second, initially, I'm going to be honest, we don't care whether it's software optimization or hardware. But at some point, software can only take you so far. And you're going to have to go hardware. And we've actually had this when I was at Sub 2. We had a miner build an FPGA for a circuit that we were going through and compiling, creating ZK proofs for. They were the top.
Bring an FPGA to life. What does it look like? Is it the thing that I just showed on the screen? Is it something different?
The way that I would go about it would probably be initially it won't look like that. That's like the end product look of it, right? Let's put it that way. That's the end of the road look for it. But initially, it can literally just be like wires connecting things, and like you have a circuit board, a custom circuit board. And in the beginning, they never look pretty, right? There are companies that actually help build custom circuit boards and will design it, and you can actually like send in an order, and then they'll ship you a custom circuit board.
But like to your point, like what I'm trying to do is paint the picture of who is the guy that is mining, right? There's a guy that I know, and I was going to start my Bigtensor journey with, and he made a custom computer, right? And he loves to tinker with this stuff. He has basically a server farm in his basement, and he has all this like custom electricity setups in his house, redundancies, everything. My point there is that it is not the employee of OpenAI or Anthropic that is going to mine on this, much like they would for Ditto. That makes more sense, right? Or but it's the person who works at a data center and is the person who is a technician and loves this shit. And there are tons of those types of miners on Bigtensor, and this person is going to be meticulous about the hardware that they are basically issuing to the network as their submission for tokens and service. And that's all that I wanted to make sure was abundantly clear, right? This is not just like some guy doing software optimizations after the first couple of weeks. This is a dude trying to figure out and then also this, to my understanding, how does it scale, Dan? Because there is like the speed scale, but there is also the throughput per device. You don't have the same throughput as your rack in your house when you have a custom circuit board, to my understanding. I'm also a smooth brain, so like that's what we should call the show, smooth brain. But talk to me about that.
If you've ever built your custom gaming rig, I would say you're like halfway there, right? And there's plenty of dudes that built their own custom water-cooled gaming rig that they go out. You can rebuild 2 or 3 of them. Honestly, if you're a top miner, you're going to get paid well enough to where, look, this subnet paid for my custom computer. It's doing great for me. I want to continue being a top miner. I'm going to buy another custom computer, maybe identical, maybe with more upgrades. And then let me build another custom game. And then that kind of leads you down the path of, okay, now I can actually go even more custom, right? I maxed out the motherboard that I'm using for this, the CPUs, the GPUs. I know RAM is extremely expensive right now, but like you max this out and then you're like, okay, well, to get to the next step, I'm going to need this modification, which can only be done by hand. And then you go forward in that direction, right? So, Peyton, you wanted to jump in there for a second.
You're on mute.
Yep. Oh yeah, hey guys. I just jumped in because I actually just thought about Talus, and I figure, hey, Talus is going to be a miner. But Dan, there's other small companies that are really trying hard on this frontier.
Oh yeah, that would be so funny, dude. Talus would just kill everything.
It makes the most sense, though, you know. And we get to fund.
It's free money.
Mm-hmm. Dan, right. Let's put you on a plane to Texas.
I mean, Dan gets to fund their development hardcore. Imagine how much they could accelerate.
It's a great idea.
There is, Talus isn't the only one. Just for context, I think Veritasium made a whole video of analog computing about this as well with a different company from Texas. Veritasium is like a sciencey YouTuber, right? And the whole point of analog computing is they explain this even like better than I did, right? But it's a thing. Like you can just run electricity through certain gates with certain resistors and get certain outcomes. And this is that's what a model is, except the difference is we're adding complexity on top with binary. And we're calculating
on Earth, predicting eclipses, tides, and guiding anti-aircraft guns. Then with the advent of solid-state transistors, digital computers took off. Now virtually every computer
is literally analog computing. You're just going
exactly
back to the basics, baby. Back to the Silicon Valley.
And you can't beat it because the computation is done via physics. Like down when you get to the core of it, the computation is not done with binary and then with N gates and G gates and all these other gates that the computer has to. There's like you start with there's levels to going through. So you can start with like literally assembly, and then you have to abstract assembly away to get to C. Then you have to abstract C to get to Python, and then there's this chain of basically translation layers that a computer has to go through, which this has none of. This is like, I'm going to physically put electricity in this conductor, and it's going to conduct it. And I got you can't out-compete physics on computation. That's just not possible.
So then what happens to these? I guess like do you just put a bunch of these chips? Like, because to me, like if like inference cost goes to 0, if this is the case. Or near
it's inference. Like if this is done right, and the way that I see the future is analog computing, and I'm talking about like maybe 15, 20 years out, right? But also it is going to be so efficient. And when you say inference goes to 0, like my Apple Watch will run Fable, right? Like that would be the dream. And why do I need my Apple Watch to run Fable? I don't. I'm going to be honest, but maybe I will at some point. And then, it's because it's going to be so efficient in terms of compute. You're just doing a small pulse of electricity. Like that battery can last for days, doing that. It's not, but the computation is on the other end is whatever you want it to be, right? Whatever model you can cram into it. So
if I hear this, basically Ditto as a company just buys one of these chips in this, in this reality. They buy a chip, say they buy it from Instant, right? Because we've created a mechanism that creates the fab, and then some manufacturer just produces it. Peyton has it sitting next to wherever he is in his computer, just sitting right there, really nice, normal plug, and it's just bing, 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 all the time. Now it's probably not that great at like doing things concurrently, probably not at all even possible, but it's so fast it doesn't even matter, right?
exactly.
So is that the case for this?
Peyton can replace a data center with something on his computer that runs as a regular computer. That's the vision I see in the future.
Wow. Okay, so before we move forward, we're going to talk about this same thing we did with Zipcode and how we're going deep on capital, especially credit-based capital, on-chain credit-based capital for assets, right? Asset-backed capital. This is very, emergent. Same thing for you. For you though, we talked last night about the device, the hardware implications, and having different mechanisms. Before we move on to Peyton, because that's the first user of Instant, talk to me about how you see Bigtensor and what it's incentivizing and what it's structured to do. You helped build primitives on Bigtensor, so I'd love to know, and I think the audience would love to know what you think about this, the network's kind of like macro incentive on pushing you to just go deep instead of wide.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? One of the ways I think about it is Bigtensor itself incentivizes, right? And then there's subnets which incentivize, right? So there's the high level incentive mechanism, and then you go down, right, down the chain. And the idea is to push forward innovation, and that's what it technically subsidizes as well. So I want to push forward innovation, right? Let's come from a perspective of a subnet owner, and I want this innovation to go in this direction that we're talking about. I'm going to create an incentive mechanism, and Bigtensor is going to help subsidize to make this vision come true, right? Because if I was going the traditional VC route, how much money would I have to raise in order to create a physical hardware chip that puts something like this on the board? Will I even have to create my own fab, right? What I can do is I can create an incentive mechanism that says, hey, you miner, you are now a little fab lab. And you can go and start building things on your own, and I'll have these fabs competing with each other for my service. Now it's kind of, the whole structure here is kind of flipped, right? It's no longer I'm going out to VCs and I have to try to find this single fab out there in the world, if it exists, that will build this custom hardware for me. And if it can't, I have to build a fab myself. I would flip that incentive and I say, hey, I'm providing this now. You miners, why don't you become the little fab labs and start putting together FPGAs, start putting together your gaming rigs, and we can build up, right? This is going to be a story. This is going to be, there's going to be a timeline here. The end goal is, I'm trying to make it clear here, right? If we can do 20,000 tokens a second on GPT OSS, that'll be amazing, right? We've already revolutionized the world with that alone, right? But what I'm going to do is set the incentive to where now the competition is flipped. It's competing for my business, not me competing for theirs. And Bigtensor is great at this, right? And every subnet that is successful functions like this. And so that's one of the things that Bigtensor does. It flips the traditional models on their head, so to speak. And yeah, and that's this is the place to innovate, because you're not innovating you're starting from the ground up. It's already in a different structure, a different world, and innovation goes along a different path. It has to, and it's forced to, and that's one of the ways I see it. That's why I love it.
Wow, yeah, and I even see the we've been talking about these like adversarial campaigns, but you can also have like super helpful campaigns where you say, hey, hey, miners, go make these fab designs. And if there's some way to validate which design is being run by having that access into the device in the form of something like AT or the technology that you developed previously. But as long as you can do that, you could basically have a JV, a joint venture where you have miners making these fabs. And then once somebody makes that, you can't copy it. It's like if you make that, it's void. Like your copy is void. And then if that fab is used in a hardware that serves inference and it earns alpha, that's like hey, we're business partners. Fab Lab, and the Fab Lab is not producing it. This would be the miner of the inference competition is producing the thing. Now, I want to just leave it there. We could talk about timelines and how you actually get for like a 6 nanometer, production and manufacturing capability and scale, where you don't really need a scale. You just kind of need like one of these or a handful of them to be dangerous. And I want to bring our friend Peyton in. Peyton's going to be is using a lot of inference. The goal with the levers that we have as subnet owners is really the biggest one is our subnet. But to the point of Peyton, his subnet is analyzing models, harnesses, simulating these harnesses through Ditto Bench. So Peyton, welcome back to the conversation. Sorry for that slow period.
Hey guys, not a worry. I've been cooking in the background per usual. Yeah, hey, good to be here. So, the question is like, what are we doing with Ditto Bench? We're running a boatload of inference. We've surpassed like 4 billion tokens consumed in terms of all of our benches so far. We're approaching 1 million inference requests already in the span of a few weeks. We are approaching 3,000 bench runs. We have mean testing. So we have these seeds that we generate for each like bench run, and devise a system to continuously re-benchmark everybody. And then I'm kind of rambling on a few topics that are on my mind.
So re-benchmark, is that because you updated to
no
version?
So what happened is so we have a generative benchmark, which I think is really cool. Similar to like a wallet seed, you start with a seed and then it generates a whole fake user history. And from that user history, you can take that in, like what is the miner has to take in a bunch of information, which is this user history. And then the miner has to use the correct tools and then also get facts from the memory correctly. That's what we're measuring in the benchmark when you submit an agent. So you submit an agent to us. It looks like a Docker file and some code. We build your Docker file. So that's something I'm excited about is starting today, hopefully, we'll let you write in any language because we're only interested in like the innovations that we can extract out of what the miners are doing. Like some people might think that we need to use the code that the miners produce, but we actually don't. We actually study the code that they produce and then we use what we learn from them. And we're able to do that because of LLMs. So we use enough inference, we used workflows, so we can study the top 5, in fact, study the top 25, whatever, amalgamate what everybody's learned into the actual Ditto production agent. So that's the approach we're taking. A lot of people ask us, how are you going to integrate the miner innovations? The miners are researchers. We're running a decentralized research lab. Nobody puts research code in production. They learn from the research code, then they implement the production code. So that's how this whole pipeline like transitions. So it makes sense to let miners write in whatever language they want. So point is, a long user history, there's a seed stage where they have to take in all the data. And then they've taken in all the data. Now they have to answer the bench questions. So both phases like take inference. That's why we're consuming a lot of inference. We're consuming embeddings. So Dan, if Instant ever wants to serve embeddings, we'll consume your embeddings. And I honestly think that's a huge opportunity too, like ultra fast embeddings. And then your question about
subnet doing that, by the way. We should
what's
look
that?
into that. I think there's a subnet doing that, but please continue.
Okay, so embeddings are kind of embeddings are interesting because it's as if you took the top level neurons of an LLM and you just stopped there, and that's kind of what the embeddings are. It's like a different representation of information. But embeddings, we use them a ton in retrieval, which is all about Ditto's memory. So we use embeddings a lot for memory. But your question about retesting is basically, as I said, each seed is unique, and we have a lot of seeds. So there is some variance in the difficulty of each generative data set, of each generative benchmark. Like normal benchmarks is one benchmark data set, and you know, okay, this is the data set, it's difficulty X. But with Ditto Bench, since it is generative, it's possible for seed A to be easier than seed B, or vice versa. So what we do is the top agents still naturally filter up to the top, and then we engage retesting to only the cream of the crop, where we start throwing random seeds at them as waves. So all of the top people are going to have to test again on seed B69, and then they're all going to have to test on seed F11, and they'll all test on uniform but random seeds. And that's how we know, like, okay, we call those waves. So they've all been tested on these sample waves, and we see that some of these agents actually have high variance. You can see it on the graph, like they're not, and then some of them are really tight, like they really tightly score consistently. So that's V7. And I wanted to say something that we got dead wrong. When we launched Ditto Bench, we told everybody that you can't game Ditto Bench because it's generative, and oh my gosh, the combinatorial, like blah blah blah. We were so wrong about that. People are gaming the bit, and everyone in Bigtensor should not be surprised. Oh yeah. But it's the Bigtensor mentality. Like, honestly, some people hit me up and say, oh my god, like this miner's cheating, and like you need to like block their emissions, and like I'm really just hesitant to do that, and I basically don't do that generally because I'm like, look, I'm sorry, like my mechanism wasn't good enough, and some people did score like perfect on it, and it's not the agent I'm looking for in Ditto, but that just means my bench is wrong, and that's why we keep iterating on the benches. So bench 8 I'm particularly excited about. I made a dataset viewer because I needed to be able to inspect these generations. And I did some interesting stuff, kind of similar to like games like Minecraft and like Sims and SimCity, these generative aspects and like these generative universe worlds. And then
Wait, do you have a demo of this?
What's that?
Do you have a demo of this?
Yeah, I think I do. I can, if you give me a sec, I can get that
Dude,
out.
Yeah, this sounds epic.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So you can inspect these fake people and then kind of like smell test that. All right. If you guys want to like dither, I'm gonna pull this up. Should take me like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think you have screen share capabilities.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna check out the branch and then fetch.
What the?
And then check out. Sweet. Okay, and then the command is this command, and then open the URL. Bind address is already in use. What do you mean? 1 second. Please kill this port. 2 minutes.
I wonder how many times I've opened the Talus website this week. Probably like 40 times.
Probably an unbelievable
I just
amount.
look at it. I look at it and I can't believe it. The model on a chip. The data center on a chip. What the fuck? It's a very, very easy thing to understand. But it's kind of hard to even grasp.
Here we go.
Just to add a little more on there, it is much more complicated than just the way we're talking. You need memory in there, right? You need all sorts of other. The model is the model, but the model is not just the model, right? At the end of the day,
Sure.
you still need. there's
that chip
other
can
things.
exist just to be the model, right? That chip can literally just serve to be like
The model.
the model, and
Exactly.
you can attach memory to that chip.
Exactly.
Right.
And
Yes.
that's what Talus does.
You guys see this now?
Yes. Just real quick, restream does go slow. So when you're switching pages real fast, on the user's side or the viewer's side, rather, it's going to lag a little bit. So if you go to a page, it's totally fine. If you switch pages, fine. Just stay on it for a few extra seconds than you normally would, so we can just make sure somebody gets a clear frame. But yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome. So, oh my God, I'm so excited about this. I think this is going to be game changing. So, we are looking at Ditto Bench Data Viewer, and we are looking at a seed. And let me just hit random seed. New person, new person, new person.
And these are fake people, right? Copper, Bridge, Silver, Thimble. These are all fake users.
Correct. They're fake users with fake like families, with fake jobs, fake businesses that they work at, fake relationships, fake travels and journeys, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm trying to make this basically as realistic as possible and as much like combinatorial explosion as I possibly can. It's really exciting. So I want to find one that uses, so some of, when you're using a chat agent, sometimes you paste a blob of text like this, or like these. So this question is aimed to measure your ability to fetch like multiple memories that are needed for this, and get the right answer from varying size user prompts. Another thing we're measuring is, I'm looking for another example. We have these story prompts. Yeah. So this is a generative story. So as I said, we have generative universes with people in them, and these people have relationships and families and businesses. And then we have structured stories that I came up with. So think of an event, now turn it into like a JSON data object that represents what happened in the event. Now translate that into English and have variants on how you retell the story, because you can say things in different wording. So all of those dimensions to try to throw off things like regex matching and just like dumb approaches that people can take. So basically this is a story that comes with a bunch of facts in it. Something like, oh my God, I first assumed the old channel and headline budget were still safe. Then I realized both belong to the earlier state of the decision. It changed how I thought about accountable follow through. This is another thing we do to throw off. These histories are littered with people changing their mind and updating facts. Like, oh, I no longer like this. Oh, my trip in Paris was actually 5 days, not 3. Oh, Sebi doesn't agree with the business proposal anymore. Or, oh, I've moved teams. So that's what this is. And there's a bunch of stuff aimed to throw the agent off. And then there's supposed to be like the answer, like in one sentence in the middle of the memory. But not only that, some questions require you to take all 3 of 3 big memories and put the pieces together. Like you would have to pull the right information from 3 different large memories, and like none of them have the verbatim answer in there, but there is a correct answer. These are kind of the things that we're doing math over these things. So if you have a message about like, oh, I spent this and I spent that, the answer isn't there. You have to take the memories, do math over numbers in the memories, and then return an answer. So that's kind of what Bench 8 is looking at. And I generated like business stuff. That's new for Bench 8, because like we started off in Cowork, we're open source Claude Cowork. So you have to like, this person works in a messy business with like messy context, and some of the questions are trying to reconcile that type of stuff. So to give you an idea, generally that's that's generally the philosophy of this new V8 generator is, so instead of V7's philosophy was like we're generating a user trace and here are the parameters that we can vary on the user and like we just generate the trace. V8 is like we're generating the world, the universe, the relationships, the entities, and the characteristics and traits and the events on there. And then we're generating a trace based on that. And there's other confounding elements. I have misspellings modeled after people fat fingering on iPhones or using there and there incorrectly, misspelling, stuff like this, other things to confound the agent. And then last thing.
You there real quick, Peyton, because I think this is a good point to add the industry context or the detail context that Ninja, or what was Ninja, subnet 66, is now, it starts with a C, conjecture. Conjectures. And they basically put out this whole post saying, hey, this harness competitions are structurally challenging, and instead of us pushing through this, we're going to go and do this thing. Now, I mean, I hope they win because I wanted them to win with the harness thing. But I'd love to know what you can extract from that. Keep it simple. You went kind of in the weeds here. Real quick, before you go and talk about the learnings of Ninja, can you tell me about how our viewers here can see this?
Yeah, for sure. So so DittoBench and everything is built out in the open here at Ditto. So sometimes miners ask me, where can I see the V8 stuff? It's all open source happening on GitHub. So we're looking at DittoBench data gen. This is where the data pipeline stuff is being worked on. What you see here is called a stack of PRs, and this is the way that I work. So I'll make an initial PR and then another PR on top. These PRs represent code changes. So picture me working on the task and I'm progressively building on top and making the changes required. So I'm at the point now where V8's looking really good and I intend to release it today. It's my goal. I'm at the point of polishing. So people can try out this dataset viewer just by going to this GitHub here, and there will be a command there. And so I'm looking at this, and you'll notice there's a section here while it's hiding, but I can critique the dataset, which is huge. See this little note section? This is my smell test. So that's what I'm doing today. I have this viewer, so I can look at the dataset and say, oh, this is not very believable, not realistic. Save a flag. Now I have this little piece of data that I give back to my AI and say, hey, I have this issue with data gen. It's not making a realistic enough this. This is how we're going to iterate on the bench. And also, miners are going to use this because they're going to get their scores, and then they're going to look at their seed and what their agent did for every single question, and they'll be able to learn way more about how to make their agent better. So that's very exciting. So yeah, so V8 is going to come out today in a few hours, like this evening. Things are looking good. I think that's all I had to say.
Do you have more on the Ninja subject?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for reminding me this. Yes. Ninja is a really great friend now. Happy to call like sisters Yancey's friends. So I read that article and very much resonated with me that a lot of the problems that they mentioned are things that we've experienced. Now that's
like, I'm not the only one.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude. Yes. I mean, 100%. Seriously, it felt like reading my journal, like as if like, and it was as if I was like speed running everything that he wrote in that article. I was like, oh yeah, I've been dealing with this over the last week and a half. Like, so it was refreshing to see that perspective and validating to see. And I think one key insight that I took away was that they tried private held back dataset questions because some miners tell me to do that. But Ninja tried this, and while miners just probe your incentive mechanism, they throw out submissions to inspect the private questions without reading the private questions. So they send out probing submissions to try to gather information. So even when you make things private, people are probing your system and they will pull information out. So that reinforced my belief that, you know what, no, we don't actually need held out questions in DittoGen and DittoBench. We don't need a private held out data set. It's not really going to make much of a difference. So key takeaways from the Ninja article are just knowing some of the things that they tried that didn't work, and reinforcing some of my choices I've made. And it did reinforce that, you know, what I've been experiencing is the amount of effort that it takes to get quality output out of subnet, especially an agent harness subnet. Let me be clear about that. There are some subnet IMs that do not require that much maintenance to get good results, because it's just kind of like, there are some IMs that don't have a clear ceiling, and you can just kind
you're
of
you're looking at the IM on my screen. He's right here. You're looking at this exact IM.
Dan's IM, right? See, because Dan's IM, he can just ratchet up the number. That's kind of all he has to do, right?
Hey Siri, change number.
Yeah, he'll have a little MCP server for instant, and it'll be like instant admin, and he'll have his Claude just update instant admin's params. Like that's how I control. That's how I control Ditto. By the way, we have an MCP server, so we control the whole subnet over MCP, which is very convenient.
Oh, that's amazing.
Wait, the subnet has an MCP server dedicated to it now?
We have an internal, we call it the back room. We have a backroom MCP server, yes, because all the code's open source, but we have this platform, which is our central hub. The platform is fully controllable over MCP. So whenever miners are asking me to review submissions, I basically talk to Claude and work together with Claude, and that's how I highly recommend that pattern. It's really nice.
Well, you should share that as a asset, as a file or a folder, rather, repository on Ditto. Yeah. And you can say, hey, subnet owners, check out this resource, right? We see posts all the time of people on Twitter posting their prompts and saying that I put this prompt in and this is what it gave me. And a lot of them even go viral. Midjourney went viral with this same premise. So that would be really cool.
We'll do it.
Yeah. I gotta say real quick, the competition, where I'm trying to push this is now into it's kind of walked itself there, but I want to hear more from you about how we go deeper on the subject. Yes. What are those multiple mechanisms, right? Yes. For Zipcode, it has one mechanism, but it's super emergent because it's every type of vault. For Dan, it's going at the tokens per second, and then as far down the hardware to energy stack you possibly can, right? Even manufacturing. Tell me about yourself.
Dude, I'm so excited about this point. So I'm so excited to basically get the Ninja torch passed to us, and Sister saying that he will open source all of his research to us. So any learnings that Ninja ever made on their agent competition are now Ditto's learnings. Like
I hate to do this again, but have them upload it to a Ditto, please. We can even make it public for everybody.
Dude, we'll make it happen. Why not? That's we'll make it happen. Coming soon.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we get his learnings, which means that we can really get into coding more, and then multiple incentive mechanisms and the labor question, or the labor problem I mentioned earlier. We have an exciting concept that we're calling campaigns. For anybody that's played World of Warcraft, they might call it a raid. So what's going to be happening is the best way to describe the Ditto IM is that the miners build what Ditto needs. Okay, what does the Ditto product need? And the way we're going to do this is through varying campaigns where Ditto team is going to decide and plan these minor sprints that maybe there'll be a month, maybe it'll be 2 weeks. It depends on how long it takes to reach SOTA for whatever it is we're working on. And this month, the campaigns have been memory, specifically agent memory retrieval. That's been what DittoBench has been measuring. How good can you recall facts, and how well can you put together 5 facts across 5 different places into one correct answer? Great. and the miners have been killing it there. And I've been rolling out new benches, which are campaigns. But this has all been the same IM and the same deliverable. So my point here is we're going to change the deliverable on a regular basis. Why? Because Ditto needs a lot of things. It needs custom intent recognition models. It needs wake word models that can respond and wake up when you say, hey, Ditto. We need re-ranker models so that our search engine becomes a million times better and more context efficient, because the re-ranker will slush out all the crap and delete it.
Could you guys even make the model that could be used on Dan's?
Absolutely. 1000%. We could have a we could have a so we could have a Ditto fine-tuning month where it's like, okay, this is our this month's campaign is making a Ditto LLM that we're going to run on instant, for example. Like absolutely. So we've done memory this month, and we'll also are definitely going to do a Ditto bench campaign where the miner is going to work on Ditto bench itself. And we had an insight because we've been thinking to ourselves that we want the subnet to work on multiple things, and we believe that if the subnet only delivers a good memory harness, like it's going to get there pretty quickly. It's saturating as we speak. So how do we make the most use of these emissions? Like we need more out of the subnet. That's the only way this business actually wins, because and the miners know this, business makes lots of money buys back the tokens, funds all the hard work that the miners have done. So with that being said, we know that we want more than just memory. We got a lot of other things we need. We need coding too. So then it goes, okay, well, some people think, okay, maybe you run these competitions in parallel, but there's a problem. The problem is that the rewards aren't as juicy. So if I split my subnet into 3 competitions at once, then each of those competitions is getting only 1/3 of those juicy king emissions, and thus much lower incentive to actually try that hard. So if you run 3 mechanisms concurrently in your subnet at the same time, you're diluting yourself. So our insight was, let's make this serial and let's make this campaigns. So every time we run one of these, it's tight, it's focused, it's a sprint. All the miners know what they're working on, and the incentives are maxed out because there's only one of these that we run at any one time. And as operators, we only have to manage one of these because we know there's work involved to get the work output we want. So we're running this memory campaign, and then potentially next month will be Ditto bench campaign, where literally the goal is inverted. Your goal is now to take the top Ditto agents and make them score lower instead of making them score higher by making the bench harder. So the benchmark will be inverse. You will be the king if you produce the most score drop, and then we'll review and make sure that you actually made quality improvements to Ditto bench. And so we'll just do that. And
why can't you do this on top of each other?
Yeah, so the reason you can't do this on top is that you're splitting up your emissions too much, and you're making the incentive smaller for each of these competitions if you do them all at once.
Doesn't it make the case for that to force the price of the token up by the same type of power laws that push Bitcoin's price up?
So potentially, Sebi, but we also run the problem of each IM is taking up our effort. Each IM takes some overhead to maintain. I don't know. I think that running them one at a time gives us the ability to get more than just one thing out of our subnet, which is a desire. And earlier we were talking about subnets going deep, subnets going vertical. So I feel like every subnet we've seen, or a majority of them, is producing one thing. But what if your business needs more than one thing? And most businesses do need more than one thing.
To jump in here, we did do competitions at sub 2. We saw kind of what Peyton is talking about. There was there's then kind of 2 streams of miners. It would be the regular miners that do the stuff, and at this point it was provide proofs for the circuits, sub2, and then we did competitions of, I want you to make the circuit more efficient, right? Same circuit, but I want it more efficient, more faster. I want the proof back, basically the time thing. Much fewer miners were in that. Like, we almost had to shove them into there. And also it didn't matter on the split, but they're like, okay, I can last a month or whatever this thing is, right? And then I'll still be top miner. My focus is still on this long-term thing. If I divert myself, another miner might take my place. So it kind of comes down to this thing of like, okay, we did the competitions. They weren't, we saw some improvement. I'm not going to say zero improvement. But it was almost wasn't, I don't know if it was worth it at the end of the day, right? Because we almost had to shove the miners into the competition by just making it long enough and making the incentive high enough to where if the miner's like, if I let my pedal off of this thing, I won't get overtaken by somebody else trying to beat me in the long term kind of scenario.
Yeah. Dan, do you think that if you'd done it like one at a time, do you think it could have worked? Like, okay, now this month we're only doing efficiency.
Yes, yeah. You gotta, that runs into a kind of thing though, where it's like, okay, now you're redoing the incentive mechanism. And the first thing the miners will always try to do is poke holes in your incentive mechanism, right? So you got to make it long enough to where expect the first thing to be hole patching and then product performance after, right? That kind of scenario. But yeah, you can lay it out, and then by the way, once you have an incentive mechanism worked out, you can always resurrect it, bring it back, and its holes are already patched, right? So that's you can layer this on top and move that way as well.
Sweet, awesome. Okay, well, cool.
Wow. Okay, so we've basically come to the consensus that you can run these dedicated campaigns. You can't run them at the same time because you fragment incentives, similar to how you screw things up when you fragment liquidity, when you fragment energy, when you fragment anything. But in this case, it helps us to fragment. In the case of the other side of it, which is let's have different competitions, a fragmented subnet per se, right? And that's good. So what else is going on in the Dittoverse, right? You've really just talked on Ditto Bench. I'd love to know some progress on the the essentials of chats, files, friends. I do have some, like, I really don't even want to show it, but I want to show. I'm not going to show it. I just can't wait. I'm looking at this updated, updated from the message I even sent you last night, Peyton. And it is just such a sexy experience. It looks like iOS, but two steps ahead, two updates ahead. And that's what I'm looking at right there. And so I want to talk about the product side now. That's where my focus has been. And the big thing for me is making it so that you have chats, files, friends, and all of your at-rest data encrypted. Talk to me on the progress.
Absolutely, Sebi. So we have Nick Allen and Omar taking the lead on chats integrations. This looks like taking the top few chat protocols. It's going to be Slack, Discord, Telegram included for sure, and then a grab bag of a few others. And we are going to bring these chats into Ditto with you and make it part of your Ditto memories and give you the ability to reply to these messages in line within Ditto. But it's going to be these cards, which is that as you get a notification in Ditto, Ditto's going to give you like suggested replies based on what it knows about you and what it knows about the other person. And you'll have three options and write your own option, or you can just type directly to Ditto, be like, these three are terrible, do this. Every UI element of V2, you're going to be able to basically chat with or talk to, is the philosophy. Yes, clicking around is always optional. Talking is always an option. So you'll be able to...
Considering you're talking about... you kind of just went right into it.
The cards and stuff.
Yeah, what I will say is that, the most important thing, and honestly, the high performers that I see using AI
Yeah.
are mainly using it for triage, and then they interject, and then it does a thing. And that's what we're building this experience for, right? When I get 9 messages from Dan, because he lives on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, I'm asleep, and he's rattling off over the course of 2 hours that I'm not online, I should basically have my Ditto address that as one thing, and say, hey, I've triaged this entire, slew of 9 notifications from Dan. I've turned it into one notification here in your main Ditto chat. So now you don't have to go read 9 messages. You just read this one card. I'm not going to show anything, but these cards are super simple.
Yeah.
You just swipe right, and
Mhm.
it runs the card as the Ditto wants to.
Right.
Or you swipe up, and you can speak to the card and say, I get where you're going, but I really want it to focus on this. Reformulates, sends it to the back, reformulates, and you'll get back to that card. And
Right.
then, if you swipe left, you either dismiss the card or you send it to the back, right? And it's basically
right.
swipe on your cards, speak to your cards, and that's all you have to do. Your day is not going from Telegram to Slack to Chrome browser. It is you have a Ditto app on your desktop open, or a Ditto app on your phone or iPad, or the Ditto website open on a device. And from that experience, all of your notifications across your agents and your chats and people sharing files with you within your organization
Right.
will show up to you as these preset generative cards, these cards that generate and say,
Correct.
hey, this came in, this is what you should do. Tell me what you
Right.
think.
And the idea there is, these generative cards is just what would the perfect UI be for this situation? That's the philosophy. And so we would generate the correct buttons, the correct headers, colors, images, 3D visuals, gamepad controls, blah, blah. Everything you would need to interact with the card or to take the required action. And but you can always just chat with the card. That's something we're super.
I will add, think about a card. I don't want to show it right now, and we haven't showed it yet. It's going to be in Ken's upcoming video about Ditto.
Yep.
But a card, think of it as when you're on your phone, or an iPhone, particularly an iMessage, and someone sends you a bunch of photos. You have like
Yes.
this like basically album of images that shows up on the messages. That's how this works. That's how your notifications show up in your Ditto, right? It's not just like a bunch of messages you have to like try to track down. It's these cards. And then you settle these cards, and the whole beauty is that you expand them. They're generative UIs. So if there's book a flight, it looks like book a flight from Expedia.
Correct.
If it's book a restaurant, it looks like resy.com, the reservation company. And these are very simple things. And if you go use Claude, it's doing this, right? If you want to poll the user and get their preference on things.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I saw that you sent this prompt. You walked away from the computer. I actually had this question. Here's a card. So I make sure I can continue.
Yep. So we covered chats really good. And then friends is an important aspect of V2. And this is just Ditto with your friends. So this is chats within Ditto with you, your friends, and your Ditto agents. It's basically humans and agents together in a room, working together, which kind of plays naturally into like friends and organizations within Ditto. They serve similar purposes, but orgs are for your startup, for your nonprofit, for your church, even for your friend group or your family. And you can use these orgs to just like organize groups of people. And then I'm sharing a file, click share, and then checkbox for Ditto team, and that's sent to Ditto team. Everyone on Ditto team gets their notification. It basically works like Google Drive. No one's going to feel unfamiliar, except it's self-organizing, because our file system is smart and it actually sorts itself and even can rename your files and like give you suggestions. Hey, we think this should go in this folder. You say, yeah, you're right.
Let's break down the hierarchy here, really the structure of Dittos, right?
Yeah.
A company, right? If I hate to let's say this is a tree and not a pyramid, guys, when I use my hands.
Yeah, man.
But a company comes to Ditto and they say, cool, I made, at Peyton, but now I want to make at Bigtensor, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to make at Bigtensor ditto. That is one ditto. That is everything in the company is going into this main chat that really only the admins have access to, unless you make that open. What is and should be open are all the divisions. Each division should have
A ditto.
and then you can even have everyone using all the dittos or the execs talking to the executive ditto, and then getting data from essentially the divisional agents.
Yeah.
And then you have every personal ditto and work ditto for each of the people in those divisions. So one turns into, say, 5 divisions. 5 divisions with 5 people turns into 25 base layer dittos being fed by all of those 25 people's contexts and all of the company's backlog of data. So that's why it's so important to allow their data to scale as they need, allow them to store it as they need. Yeah, I think that's quite a concise way of allowing a company to understand, whoa, I get this. I know why this should exist.
Yeah, so it works like, I always think about Slack, Notion, and Google Workspace. So for people that have used shared drives in Google Workspace, it's kind of like that. So I make my org. Like Sebi said, there's an admin only ditto, and then each group within the company gets a ditto. And a ditto is a multiplayer workspace where people and agents work together. So let's say we have, so you have main memory, then you got Zipcode AI, OmniR Graph, and Ditto Graph. If you want to click on Ditto, there should be a couple things in there. That one, yeah. So this is our Ditto. This is our Ditto. And it has a main agent. Every Ditto has a main agent, which we're just going to call it Ditto. And then app feedback, Xsearch, minor ops. So these are some just internal things. I made a little agent that I'm doing responses to minors, right? And then, as I'm chatting, we're seeing this graph develop. There we go. So a little bit of minors v7, a little bit of Ditto app and UI feedback, and a couple of files so Ditto bench, open Ditto bench. Open minors v7 announcement. Yeah, so here's a file that I sent this to, right? So I can send it to specific friends, and this UI is going to get better. But so the under part there where it says dittos, so that's where you can share these files with entire groups. So Sebi could share it with Zipcode network, stuff like that. Expect this to look way nicer because I'm not happy with how it looks.
Well, I'll tell you, as I'm designing it, it looks like profile. So it looks like almost like an X account, and the X account essentially is just all the things you want public. So it's an X account with basically this thing as what goes under your profile and bio, right? So instead of post, replies, whatever, you have docs, projects, images, audio, pinned.
Yeah, it's going to be shared with me, shared by you. It's going to kind of look like that.
Right.
A good example is say you're Airbnb and you have like a QA ditto. You have a QA team, so you make a QA ditto, and you have an engineering team, so you make an engineering ditto. Now, you're going to want to keep these are silos. Each ditto is an information silo. The admin, you got access to every silo, so you can query, but these engineering doesn't have access to QA and vice versa. However, maybe you want one blood vessel between these two silos, which is a filter of, hey, if the QA graph contains something that engineering needs to know, they need to know about it. So that way, much of the internal BS that's happening in QA, because you actually want to keep QA and engineering kind of isolated because they're kind of adversarial, they're against each other. But you attach a little blood vessel of the right couple subjects, and those will automatically go into engineering. So engineering ditto will have access to that information in a controlled manner. That's where I think this gets crazy interesting, because I feel that it translates to large organizations. I think that these type of systems, like like, I feel like our team isn't even big enough where this really matters. But if you had hundreds or thousands of people, I could see this org structure getting crazy and organic. And yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, everybody works on the same thread. One of the greatest travesties of all business endeavor and all business endeavors is the fact of, what is it? This is the reason for the Moloch DAO even.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like there's even like an esoteric element to like the dysfunction of human.
Yes.
That is solved by this.
And the loss of knowledge. Can we beat like siloed knowledge, you know? Yes.
There is another aspect that I like, and I've mentioned this before, but students and classrooms. If you give a teacher like the admin view Ditto and students go off working on their own projects, the teacher can keep track of the projects, right? And maybe some projects talk to each other.
To your point, Dan, I was given a Google Drive account when I went to high school, or when I went to middle school, 7th grade. I went to middle school, 7th grade, and they were like, "This is where you live now." And I was like, "Cool, I love this," and I used it. I'm using it today. Like in this call, I was in a Google Drive at one point. So I think that's a really great point, right? And it also makes a case for subsidizing, because you know that end result is tremendous, right? That person talks to their friend and their father, and then the father is the CEO of a big corporation, and you know how it goes.
.edus, right? That'll be like, if you have a .edu account, that's how Facebook started, right? It was just like only like, hey, I'm gonna do it at my school for friends and kind of idea, but eventually teachers joined. But like, have a .edu, have a subsidy. Like, look, as Insta, I'll work with that too, right? I'll subsidize .edu for inference. I think that'll be a great marketing campaign for the instant subnet as well. So we can go like just ideation, but like .edus are subsidized. You can create school projects from different classes for different things. This is great for organization, and then give it to teachers as well to run their classroom projects as well, right? And by the way, a teacher probably teaches like 7 classes or something, right? So it's like, okay, well, morning class is this, and that's all the other students' projects, and evening class and afternoon class, and blah, blah, blah. Amongst teachers, here's what we're talking about. It could be a great use case.
Absolutely. The school itself is a whole org, right? And then there's departments, and then, you know, and this is nested. Dittos can have dittos inside of them. That's all a thing too.
A school, so you can even like keep going. You can like go school district, and if you make it so that these dittos can be kind of like transferred, you know, quite easily, you can go and say, all right, well, we got this teacher to convert. That teacher then got her department. That department then got the school. That school then got the school district. That school district got the county. The county got the tri-county. The tri-county got the state. And then the state got the, you know, you literally just go up the levels, and it starts from a friend saying, holy shit, have you seen this? It looks like iOS 2 updates from now with AI at the core, and the AI benchmarks higher. And this is where I do want to end the conversation, because we've started this in the past, but it works really well with what I was just saying. And this really cool, beautiful application with all my chats, files, and friends is benchmarking higher than OpenClaw, or benchmarking higher than Hermes. Talk to me about that process that you've undergone in terms of shit testing, some of the overfitting, of finding the needles in the haystack of good agents we've gotten from miners, and testing that against the state of the art that we have.
Of course, yes. So I've begun this process. There's much more work to do. So one of the first things I did was created an adapter so that I could run OpenClaw and Hermes in Ditto Bench and see how they did. And based on those results, they score pretty low. And I'm not going to knock them and say they're bad software. Like, I'm just going to say that they weren't really built for Ditto Bench. So to be fair, miners do what miners do. So they're going to benchmax to a bench. Let's like OpenClaw is scoring a memory score of 0.226. Hermes is scoring 0.136.
Oh, hold on. Let me share my screen. I'm on this right now.
Mhm.
So yeah, also guys, note that the Ditto Bench website was recently updated. This is much, much, much simpler.
And
But
it's
you
going to
can
get better. This is just the beginning.
the top line here is following basically days and the winners for Ditto. Now you
Right,
can
new
see
kings.
how as we get lower, this is really where like overfitting, like this is overfitting, right? This is not
Correct.
overfitting. This is overfitting. This is not overfitting. And basically, this is OpenClaw on the blue line, and this
Yes.
is Hermes on the orange-ish line.
Correct.
And yeah, just so you guys know what you're looking at here, and you can go and audit this yourself at dittobench.ai. Peyton, please continue. Talk to me about more tests on OpenClaw and Hermes. Do we meet them where they are? Have you done a long mem eval? Because everybody, to my understanding, there's just one. It's long mem eval. And that's really all they give a shit about.
Yeah, so what we actually need to do is, the most fair shit test is going to be taking Hermes, OpenClaw, and say the top 3 miners agents and running those on long mem eval. So I haven't done that. I did an initial long mem test on one of our agents. I'm going to update it. Kaba 57 is our king right now. It's a very strong code base, and I would love to see how it does in long mem eval. So, I don't have the results yet, but these are going to be really important results.
Okay, now we have something to look forward to. Can you have that ready by Tuesday? Can we have you back on for Tuesday, and we can do?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I can tell you by Tuesday. So the question is, does Kaba beat Hermes and OpenClaw in long mem eval? I think that's the real question. We'll set the same model, so they all have to use the same model. And
that's actually the diet version. The reason I say diet is not to be a jerk, but because the real thing is actually, do what you said. Not to, and I said that.
Deep Ditto Bench,
which is this. Ready? You could take whatever that miner's submission was, your top miner. You could take it and rip it, and you can benchmark with that, or you could do what you said, which is we're going to rip all of the best performing principles of the top, say, 3 non-overfit models from the Ditto competition, the Ditto bench.
Yes.
We're going to then benchmark
make the ideal
agents themselves that we got from the Ditto bench, Hermes, OpenClaw, Cursor, Claude, Codex, and then you have the Ditto production. Ditto production is the lessons learned.
Yes.
Maybe it's not done by Tuesday, and the other parts can be, but
I'll have something to share by Tuesday.
Amazing.
Some results. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
something preliminary.
You guys hostage for way too long. I need you guys coding. We cannot be on these talking. I'm just kidding. I love this. This was probably my favorite stream thus far. I think that having this as a constant on the Thursday calls, us 3 addressing our communities as owners, is tremendously important. Mm-hmm. And then on Tuesday, talking about what's cool. Sometimes you'll be there, sometimes you won't. I always will. And maybe in a case you throw a guest my way, and I'll save you the time of interviewing them. But this is part of why we work together at Bigtensor. We will have many, many, many updates coming next week. First vault being able to be seen on a front end, money flowing into Zipcode as revenue. Ditto will be doing a buyback, I believe tomorrow. Instant is also going to be sharing the website, the new logo, the identity change on Monday. You'll see all that. The logo is looking really cute. It's like, oh my God, so many fun ideas. And yeah, guys, if you have anything else that you want to get off of your chest after I've held you hostage here, right? Please do.
Yeah, we're buying back Ditto token with half of the revenue we've collected from miner submissions. Super stoked about that. The other half we're just paying ourselves for inference costs and et cetera. So yeah, that's like Sebi said, coming tomorrow.
And just real quick, that breakdown is right. So you have basically 30 tau. 15 of that is going to a Ditto buyback. 15, you can almost expect this to be what Instant will be getting. As you speed up the Ditto validation and you get more registration fees, you're ratcheting up how much you can actually buy back just for validation and just for innovation. So kind of circular economics, but it is true tau, fresh tau into a pool in both circumstances. But
yeah,
Dan,
when Instant's live, yeah, we're gonna run all the Ditto Bench inference over Instant, and like I told you guys earlier, like we did over 4 billion input tokens already. It's a pretty good amount of inference. So yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, anything from you, Dan, before we go?
That's it. I gotta build. I'm excited to share I guess the logo and stuff with you. We'll come on for that at some time, and maybe a demo at some point, right? So
yeah.
But yeah, I gotta build this. That's what I gotta do.
Get to work. I'll see you, boys. I'm gonna do the same.
Peace and love.
Okay.
Bye.
Peace and love.
Right.